Hi, my name is Victor Blanco, and today I will present you guys with my persuasive speech. I am frowned upon, I am seen as unmoral, I am misunderstood, I am capital punishment. So today I will explain to you guys my reasoning behind my support for the death penalty and why I believe it is necessary for dangerous criminals who have committed crimes that are obscene. So starting off with the pros of the death penalty. First off, it is cheaper for the government, in that case the taxpayers, which in a sense is us. I will give two examples of two different kind of inmates. The first one would be the life sentence with no possibility of parole inmate, and the death row inmate. So the lifelong inmate must be maintained until death, and they have to be maintained with basic resources as food, clothing, housing, and in this case, the prison, which needs to be maintained and paid for. On the other hand, the death row inmate has to be maintained until they are executed by the state. And once that is done, no more funds or resources have to be given out. The second pro is it sets an example for other criminals. And further on in the speech, I will explain and back up with statistics as to how it sets an example for them. An example I could use now is if criminal A sees criminal B commit a crime so serious that his life is taken away, it is a fact that it would deter them from committing the same crime, because most sane human beings don't want their life to be taken away. The third pro is the death penalty is constitutional. I've seen in many different blogs and articles of people arguing of how unconstitutional the death penalty is and it's inhumane, innocent lives are being taken. Yes, that is possibly true. Also, I believe that it is constitutional for a reason. I believe that certain crimes that, for example, have a relationship to innocent people being murdered, that is something very severe, and I believe the death penalty is necessary, and that's why it is protected by the Constitution. So the fourth pro is society rids itself from a criminal who is a possible danger to society. So we all say, the justice system is flawed. Somebody who commits murder can possibly be released, or any kind of crazy crime of that nature can be released, as an innocent man could be killed with the death penalty. So it goes both ways. It could be a back and forth conversation, but my personal reasoning as to why I like this pro the most, because I don't want to walk around anywhere in this world or want any of my loved ones to walk around somebody who has committed those crimes. And with the death penalty intact, it assures the safety for everybody. So going on to the next slide is the history of the capital punishment. So it was abolished in 1972, Furman versus Georgia. Basically, a rundown of the case. The death penalty was a risk in regard to killing an innocent human being and the criminal's life being in the hands of the jury, which is very understandable reasonings for it to be abolished. Nobody wants an innocent person being killed for something they didn't do, and most people don't want their lives being in the hands of the jury, which can have a concern of bias. But that's the reason for its abolishment. So when it was reinstated in 1976 by the Supreme Court, Gregg versus Georgia, it is now currently legal in 30 states, reinstated for a reason. So the reason I have that there is because the Supreme Court wouldn't reinstate the capital punishment just for the fun of it. I believe it is a necessity. People who take the lives of innocent human beings or just have no regard for human life do not deserve to be on the planet, and that is why it is intact today, and why the states rid themselves from people like that. This is kind of to support the argument of innocent people being killed. It is now less strict, as in back in the day when you would be charged with it. It was not as a quick process as it's never, death row is never a quick process. So by me saying it's less strict, a lot of procedures weren't being taken as they are today. these types of cases and criminals who have been charged with capital punishment or have been sentenced to, excuse me, not charged, have been sentenced to the death penalty, have to go through a very long process that really analyze the core, the core specifics of the crime to make sure that no innocent lives are being taken and that it is a fit punishment for the crime that was committed. So moving on to the crimes that initiate capital punishment, there are currently 41 different kind of crimes that can come with the capital punishment. My top 4 is murder, rape, destruction of aircrafts or hijacking, and mailing harmful substances resulting in death. So most of these cases really result in death, and I believe if you take the life of somebody that's innocent or do harmful things to innocent people, and I want to state and make it clear when I say innocent, because people who have no regard for that kind of life do not deserve to be here, as I stated before. This list basically is a rundown of obscene crimes and people who most of us believe that shouldn't be here if committed. So moving on to my trusted sources and the quotes I found while doing my research from trusted people. I'm going to start off with Michael Summers, who has a PhD and MBA and is a professor at Pepperdine University. He stated that in the early 1980s, the return of the death penalty was associated with a drop in the number of murders. So moving back to my prose, I stated that it sets an example for other criminals. And as he stated, it dropping the number of murders. When you see somebody getting their life taken away for a specific crime, it generally deters another individual from making that same mistake. So Paul H. Rubin, who has a PhD and is a professor at Emory University, stated that the modern refereed studies have consistently shown that capital punishment has a strong deterrent effect, and each execution deterring between 3 and 18 murders. So basically a little rundown on his statement that for every execution that takes place, possibly 3 to 18 lives will be saved, which is a pro in itself. That's why another reason for the support for the death penalty. So on to my third source, Hashim, who has a PhD and is a professor of law at Emory University, stated that there is strong evidence for the deterrent effect of capital punishment. Each execution results, on average, in 18 fewer murders with a margin of error of plus or minus 10. Tests show that results are not driven by tougher sentencing laws and are robust to many alternative specifications. So these 3 sources basically support the pros of it, setting an example and are also growing or pushing our society into a better direction and kind of separating 2 different kinds of people, as in people who commit capital punishment worthy crimes to our general population, or just society in general, who would never do something like that. So all in all, I believe that capital punishment is very necessary for society. It has been used in many different cases where it is fit necessary for school shooters, for people who have just gone on rampages with any kind of weapon. It is definitely in place for a reason, and I believe that it is for the better of our society. Thank you.